Coach Smith, trying to stay as active as much as possible. We'll give it a second here for some people to get on. Trying to stay active on top of helping you guys with athletic recruiting. This is your favorite athletic recruiting Coach Smith with Love the Game 24/7. I'm live on Facebook, YouTube, and IG. Coach Smith 27 on IG, right? Love the Game 24/7 on YouTube. Okay, so you can follow Coach on YouTube, subscribe. We're talking about athletic recruiting, but Love the Game 24/7 in 2026. And I'm just trying to make sure I stay as active as much as possible for the current recruiting environment, man. So, but yeah, I love it. Everything I do, it's all about trying to help young athletes, man, keep hope in their dream alive of pursuing college athletic scholarship, getting that education paid for, a supplement the best way you can where you're not coming out with a lot of debt and all that stuff, and being able to play a sport, at one of the highest levels as possible that you can, and just understand, man, just know how to strategize through today's environment with college athletic recruiting. Things are a whole lot different even from when my oldest son was coming out of high school in 2015. So things have changed quite a bit, right? Because the NIL and transfer portal has always been around, much longer than it has than NIL has been. So, well, NIL from a legal standpoint. Let's just be real. Let's just be 100 about it, right? So, yeah, Coach Smith, man, I'm here, trying to stay active, trying to keep some of you 2026 kids, man, some hope, right? Everything that I'm about. You see one of my shirts, LTG, Love the Game, 24/7. Wearing my thing, my business, right? Because you got to love the game, right? You got to love the game, and you got to learn the game, right? And you got to learn the game of recruiting, and not just playing. And so, I'm just jumping on tonight, man, briefly, just to, talk about some things, a little brief update. I'm involved in, like I said, helping you young athletes with the recruiting process. Also have my Rise Youth Flag Football League. I have my YouTube channel, and Instagram, and all those things, podcasts, trying to speak to you parents and young athletes out there. But everything I do is all under Love the Game 24/7, right? NJCP, National Junior College Prep League. I'm the head coach for the Dallas Stampede. And we recently had one of our tryout camp opportunities, and it didn't go well, which this time around, which I kind of expected. And as I was, we didn't have any kids show. We had some kids that registered and all those things, but we got another one coming up on March 14th, and we'll probably do some things in the summer as well. And what I'm finding out is I was talking to the high school coach that was there to help open up the field for us to have access, for Dallas Stampede to have access for tryout for anybody that would that would have shown up. We just want to be sure we're making ourselves available as much as possible with NJCP and all the teams across the country, the 18, 20 teams that we have across the country. That's our main thing, man, making ourselves available. But as I was talking to the high school coach on Sunday at our location here in Little Elm, North Dallas area, the coach was, I'm not going to say what high school, but the coach was just explaining how there's some kids that are still waiting up until springtime to decide or determine where they're going. He even shared of some, one of his players has Division I offers, and he's not sure why he hasn't signed yet. And it could be a lot of factors he and I spoke about. Could be negotiating his NIL with these schools, or maybe he's indecisive. He really didn't know as of yet because several of their other players who had scholarship offers, they've signed, and he was just one that he shared and said that the one player that at his school, I think he was a receiver or DB, had some pretty solid Division I offers, but hadn't signed yet. And I guess they're still on the table, he said, because one recent one came up, a recent opportunity came up from another FCS school, but he has FBS and some FCS offers, but hadn't signed. So now I'm just saying, like I said, there's recruiting is totally different from when it was when my son was coming out, and that's just 10 years ago, right? It's not even that long ago. Definitely different from when I grew up. There are some things that are still the same, right? You still need to get exposure. However, you get it in front of these coaches to be able to view your film, see you personally, where they over time, where they've seen your progress, your development, at your position in whatever sport it is that you play. So that's vitally important because I know there's a lot of young men that I talk to on a regular basis. As I've said before, they haven't even gone to a college camp, and they're seniors. They're 20, 26 kids, and it's going to be tough, especially when a coach hasn't, been able to see you physically at a football camp against other, some other pretty good talented kids who they may be offering that they didn't get a chance to see you match up against, right? To compare you to. So you have those things. But as the coach and I was talking, I just said, yeah, man, this NIL stuff is kind of like extending and stretching out some recruiting. Because some of these college coaches, if they really like a kid and this NIL is part of the whole environment now, some schools may decide to wait or move on to another guy, and they're not going to mess around and wait on the kid. I've heard Dabo Sweeney even share that he's not going to play around with all this, negotiating and whatnot. Now he says that, but behind the scenes, you just never know, because a lot of coaches will have some kids hanging on, thinking that they're going to offer him while they're in the meantime they're waiting to hear from another top prospect that they want, who probably has them now hanging on a limb more so now because the NIL stuff that's involved. 10 years ago with my son, the school had the upper hand, right? Because there was no NIL officially. So, but now with NIL being official, and schools really into the negotiating, part of it, and there are some of these players that have, whether it's a family member or a family friend, whatever the case, so-called agent representing them, negotiating, and there are some former NFL agents that have gotten out of the NFL game and got into the college because they're doing, making more money because there's no regulations. You can have anybody represent you that you say you want representing you, and the school is going to be sure to speak to that person that you said that they need to talk to, that's negotiating for you, that's taking phone calls on your behalf. So just be very, use some, I think there's some people that's doing a good job of navigating through all this NIL negotiating and strategy and things of that nature. And I think there's some that's not, but it's totally, on you kids and your family members, your parents or whoever it is that you're giving, the okay to speak on your behalf to these college recruiters or these general managers now that they call them at the college level. So just make sure you're using some wisdom. But like we said at NJCP, I really didn't think that I would have that big of a showing right now on this, but we're just making ourselves available as much as possible. But that window with us is going to close if you guys don't, some of you young players out there that don't decide, if you decide you want to spend more than $5,000 or $6,000 in our program and go somewhere and walk on where it's a good chance that you may not, get an opportunity to get on the field. we're going to put people on the field. We're going to do that. Now, it's going to, how much you are on the field is just going to depend on your ability and your talent and how much you're ready and prepared, right? But our goal is to get it, all of our guys, players on the field, and to get you recruited and get you some footage, right? And speak up on your behalf and send out letters and emails and all those things to help boost your exposure to the college coaches. And these college coaches are going to listen. Trust me. Well, what we're doing, these college coaches are going to listen, because some of you kids no longer have to sit out and go to a JUCO that may or may not have football. Like in Florida, we don't have JUCO football, right? So a lot of kids in Florida, if they want to play, and they play the JUCO level, they go out to California, Arizona, Texas, Iowa. I played college football in Iowa, and so I know there's some pretty good junior college football in Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma. But when there's 200-300 guys. I got friends who played JUCO ball, and they tell you, man, it's like, oh, you got 200-300 kids, right, out there trying to play, and they may have 1 or 2 JV teams. You may play a few games. They may not even play 10 games. In JCP, we're going to play at least 10 games or more. We're going to have a playoff as well, and we're going to have a championship that's already being planned to be played at the SoFi Stadium, LA Rams and LA Chargers Stadium. So we already have that stuff in the works, for you guys. If there's any questions or anything, don't, put them out there, in the chat on YouTube, in the chat on Coach Smith 27 on IG or Facebook. I'm more than happy to answer the questions if you have questions, any insight. But if you want to know more information about, the camps, I'm going to put for the tryouts for any of our teams, I'm going to put it in the chat. NJCPfootball.com is where you want to go to find out about camp dates for a school near you, one of our programs near you, right? We got 4 in Texas. We got like 2 or 3 in Florida. Let me just put this in here. We're a nationwide program, right? And we want to be sure we're providing, and we will provide you an opportunity to continue playing at a high level that will get you recruited, right? And I'm going to make sure I put it in the chat. Appreciate you guys joining Coach Smith, on whether you're on IG watching it live or the video. I appreciate you guys joining Coach Smith and checking us out and subscribing and following whatever it is, whatever social media platform that you're using, TikTok. I'll put shorts and all those things out there. So I'm putting in the chat on all my chats that I'm live on right now, IG, YouTube, and Facebook, for tryout camps nationwide, for tryout camp info, so that way you can go somewhere, whether it's close to home. And some of you guys need to leave home, get out from home, right, and get into some new surroundings, man, and so that way you don't have any distractions. And another point I want to make in talking to the coach this weekend at the tryout camp location, he knows of, shared, he knows of a player, has a job and the girlfriend, and not sure they want to play football. I'm telling you guys, you got to be, everybody's not built to play this game at the college level. And if you got to vacillate and waver on whether you still want to play or not because of a job or a girlfriend, hey, more power to you. That's totally up to you. But like I said, this game ain't, I don't care how talented you are, because I've seen some guys, even in my, day and time, and my son has even shared the same thing about how some guys have walked away from a great opportunity that they had because of a girlfriend breaking up with them, they're trying to get back home, or, player got a job, those kind of things. And this is a small window of opportunity when you're playing sports. And if you're blessed to get an opportunity for anybody to want to offer you a scholarship, and if you're vacillating on whether you want to still play or not, don't play, right? Until you just know for sure, because you're probably not going to do yourself well if you're vacillating because of a girlfriend. I'm telling you right now, me, if it was my son or daughter or anything like that, I'm like, a boyfriend or a girlfriend is not something you make a life decision on, as far as getting a college education paid for through a sport that you've been blessed and talented to be able to play and do well and get your education taken care of, because education is expensive. 25 years in financial aid, I'm telling you, education is not cheap. And if you're willing to walk away from a great opportunity to potentially continue to play a sport, nobody's talking about pro, I'm just talking college football, that's going to help pay your bill, pay your education. Whether you got NIL money coming in or not, you have a scholarship that's paying for your education. And it's a job. Playing college sports period, it's a job. And that's why I'm good with the NIL opportunity. Now I think there's some things that can work out, with it or whatever, but I'm okay with NIL opportunities. But you got to be focused. And if you're not, if you're allowing a job because you're making a little bit of money, or a girlfriend or a boyfriend to be the reason as to why you may not go to college, when you got offers coming to you to play, I just think that's not wise at all. It's not wisdom. And so, but if that's the mindset that you have, I just say, hey, I'll pray for you, because opportunities don't, like that don't come along that often. And with NJCP, we're going to do everything we can to provide you young athletes who want to play football, college football, that opportunity to continue to develop and to hone your skills. You guys got to learn how the new strategy is, how to play this strategy in college recruiting, because these colleges, I was just reading an article. I read some articles on NIL, and there's one circular that I read. Let me go to my email and I'll tell you what the name of that circular is that I read. And some of you all might want to, pull it up, because they always have great info. Oh, NIL Wire. Yeah. They even got an article in the I think this week, or today, how NIL altered the NFL draft pipeline. I mean, they have some good articles in here on NIL Wire. I'm sure there's some other ones out there maybe that you follow, but I really like NIL Wire. And they just shared how, like, the MAC conference in basketball is finding some success because they found a formula, because they're losing players in the MAC to bigger schools, bigger programs. But what has happened in the MAC program for basketball, University of Miami of Ohio, they kind of highlighted specifically of being that program because they're doing very well. They're top in the nation, and they were last year. I think they went pretty deep in the tournament last year, and they're looking to to make another run in the tournament, March Madness, as it comes up. But the article was pointing out how the coach, and it seems like the conference, has come together and figured out a way how to, because they're losing players to major programs, right? And I'm sure it's happening in football. They lose guys, and a lot of the schools are doing the same, finding the same, issue where they can't hold on to players, right? Some, top Division II programs, some top FCS programs, they're losing players, right, to bigger programs because of the NIL. Because as a player, they figured out, hey man, if I go ball, okay, I got to go play D2 ball. Okay, I got to go play FCS ball, even though I wanted to play major Division I ball. for whatever reason, this is my roadmap. Because everybody, stop always trying to make your roadmap the same as somebody else. You know, what's for you is for you, right? But use it as a catalyst to launch you right to that level that you want to be at. Just because you didn't get that major Division I offer right now, man, doesn't mean you're not going to get one later. But how are you preparing yourself for where you're going now to give yourself that opportunity? That's the question. You got to ask yourself, man, am I sold out like I need to be sold out, you know, on my dream of playing major college football? And just because it didn't happen the way I dreamed and hoped that it would, you know, just like I dreamed and hoped that I would get that Division I offer and I had to go play D2, but my ultimate dream was to give myself an opportunity to play in the NFL. And that happened. I did that, even though I had to go through the D2 route. You know, I had an older brother who helped pave the way for me as well. You know, he put himself on the map, right? And they always ask, hey, you know, if you got some, you know, younger siblings that are ball players, we want to know about it. You know, that's always a question that college coaches ask. You know, especially if you got an older brother or sister that's a baller. You know, they want to know, man, you got any brothers and sisters that are coming up that love the ball just like you do? And so I had an older brother that paved the way for me like that, you know, that made it to every level, right? And I learned what needed to be done to help make sure my son and other kids that I coached. And like I said before, I would drive as a high school coach. I would take kids along with me and my son to college football camps to be sure that, you know, the players that wanted to go, right, that joined me got to go and see what it's like and to see who they're competing against and to see and to help them see that, hey, you're just as good, maybe if not better, than some guy that's getting recruited and they just hadn't seen you yet. So that's what I did as a high school coach, you know, and I wish more coaches would think that way. There are coaches who do. I just wish more or all of them would think that way. And I know they don't. But you just can't get sidetracked because things didn't happen the way you wanted or thought it was going to happen for you. Okay. You know, are you a fighter? Right? Because that's what, as a coach, that's what a coach want to see, man. You know, are you a baller? You know, we know the game of football, man, there's ebbs and flows, there's ups and downs in the game. You know, can you deal with the momentum changes, right? To help your team find success and get that dub? Or are you going to, you know, have a pity party because, you know, the game didn't start out in the first half like you thought it would start out? You know, so is that going to kill, you know, how you perform in the second half? Or are you going to come back more determined in the second half to change the negative stuff that happened in the first half, right? Or third quarter, you know, do you have the mental capacity to have that peace within you to know, hey, man, no, it's just a matter of time that I'm going to get this thing going. And I'm not going to make those mistakes again. Like I tell people all the time, I don't coach kids to be perfect, right? Perfectionist, man, will have you, you know, have your brain exploding, you know, because you just overthinking stuff. I tell kids, I don't want you to be, you know, perfect. I want you to be excellent, right? And there's a difference. Perfection is, you know, you hate making mistakes. Excellence is when you make mistakes, you have determined and you figured out how not to make that mistake again. And you don't make that mistake again. You perform better. That's excellence. That's doing things in excellence, right? Figuring out and learning what mistake I did make and willing to admit and accept that I made a mistake so I don't have to make that mistake again and stay focused and have better focus. So I don't want you to be perfect. I want you to be excellent. So willing to accept when you make a mistake and turn it around, right? And obviously we see that you have turned it around. I remember coaching up some kids, especially one of my DBs one year. I had this young man, you know, he was a football and basketball player. He was one of my DBs. You know, he was making mistakes, you know, early in the year. And I said, look, if you listen and where I put you, because I would make him line up at the D-back position close to his sideline so I could talk to him, be in his ear from the field, making sure I lined him up right. And I remember, you know, as we went through a few games, I'm like, man, you know, I got to see some progression because either that I'm going to have to move you, right? But you have the talent to be pretty good DB, you know. And I just, stayed on him and just said, look, if you listen to what I'm telling you, when I put you in position, when we call this our particular defense, and you're in the zone or man coverage, or I want you inside leverage or just slightly outside leverage, right? And I want your eyes. This is where I want your eyes when we're in zone coverage, right? When we're in cover 3 or when we're in cover 2 zone, where I want your eyes. And I just remember how, he got burnt one game, and I just said, look, you're gonna have an opportunity in this game, right? Or next week or whatever game, but even in this game, you're gonna have an opportunity to correct that mistake. And if you hang on the mistake that you just made, where it almost cost us, or it may have cost us a touchdown during the drive. And I just said, hey, if you don't learn how to get over, making a mistake and learn from your mistake, then I can't use you out here. I want you to forget the negative part of a mistake, but I want you to remember the positive side of a mistake on how it can help build you and help you not make that mistake again. So get on that positive side on how to use it to build you to make the correction and make the adjustment that you need to make. Not sitting there having a pity party saying, still talking, oh man, why not, we don't have time for that. And that's on me or any coach to coach up our player to make the adjustment. And I remember this kid came back second half, man, made the adjustment and got a pick. And I told him, I said, that's it right there. Because you started listening and doing what I told you to do, and I put you where you needed to be, and you listen, and it helped build his confidence, and he just continued to progress every week. I just remember, he got that pick, and finally, like, yeah, coach, man, you were right. I'm like, yeah, I know, because that's how I was coached, right? We just ask you to listen because we're gonna put you in a position to make a play. And now you got to use your talent and ability and make that play. And I remember in that second half, he made the play, he made the correction, and got an INT, and got a good run back on it as well. But and I just said, hey, I told you it was coming. That opportunity to make a correction from the mistake you made early in the half, it's gonna come. Opportunity is always gonna come for you to make it for you to make it up. But if you're not ready to make it, you're gonna miss that opportunity and you're gonna make another mistake. So your mindset got to be, okay, hey, stay in control, play within yourself, right? Within the parameters of what defensive coverage was called. You don't try to do any extra anymore, right? Play within the system, right? And when coach line you up and tell you, something's coming your way, be ready to make a play, right? And when you can put things like that on film, man, that's it's priceless, man. When you can put things like that on the field, on film, on video for coaches to see. And so, that's what we're going to be offering, man, through NJCP with all of our coaches across the country, man. It's just coaching up some kids for whatever reason why you didn't get that opportunity. Doesn't mean life is over or that you're not going to play at a high level, but it's going to be on you to decide and determine, are you going to take this opportunity? Because a lot of you guys are not going to get. You're going to be waiting in the wind, thinking if somebody's going to sign you right now, you haven't gotten a solid offer. We're telling you to get registered, get to a tryout camp for, anywhere across the country close to you. Some of you guys that are in the transfer portal need a place to play still. You need to get with our league, pay your commitment fee so we know that you're locked in and you're serious. And when you report in the summer, we're going to have jobs lined up. We're going to have housing lined up for you. Right. We don't want you to work like crazy too much. That's why we want to have these jobs lined up to where you're going to be working within, a company that's a partner to the league. A good friend of Coach Sean Jones, has some connections. So he's able to provide jobs across the league for our players and even some of our coaches. And so we want to get our eyes on you to see what you need to do. See what you guys are looking like so we can give you some things to correct and work on. So when you come and report in the summer, you're in better shape and you're still working yourself into football shape, because we don't want you in great shape, right? We want you to use some of that camp time in the summer as we get into August to get ready to start the season, and usually right around about mid-season is where you should really be getting yourself in like some of your best shape, right? Best conditioning. And so we'll be, managing that and monitoring that as coaches, right, across the league. But like I said, you know, it's still hopeful for a lot of you guys, man. But if you don't go somewhere and lock in and play, then you're making it harder than it should be. And so this is an option, a viable and very good option for many of you young players out there, right? Um, that NJCP is going to offer you, and that's the kind of coaching and that's the kind of mentality that we're going to, and that's that dog mentality that you got to have. But you can't let these girlfriends or a job where you're making a little bit of money. Man, when you got to start paying all your bills, you're gonna realize that little job you had wasn't what you really should have been doing. You should have been focusing on while you're still young is opening up doors of opportunity for yourselves, right? And definitely get that education paid for. And football could be that avenue and that door of opportunity to help you do that, and even possibly get at that top level that you want to play. Because these coaches are pulling, like I was saying, the example I started to give about the MAC conference from the NIL wire. Get back on that point was how they found a niche in getting players who have the ability and talent to play top division level 1 basketball, but for whatever reason didn't get the opportunity, and they just needed a program or a conference that has a system that they figured out that's helping their players. Because what it is, that conference in that coach from University of Miami of Ohio, he's not looking to keep his players there all 4 years. He knows these kids are looking for a big payday, right? And he's saying, hey, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you do that. Just like we're saying, we're going to help you as well through NJCP. The MAC conference and these coaches, especially University of Miami, Ohio, and the success they, are having, is that they know, hey, we're only going to have these kids maybe for a year or two, right? Most of them only for a year, but we're providing because the conference now is giving some of these potential top division 1 level players who didn't get their opportunity for whatever the case may be, why they got overlooked or whatever, for whatever reason. It could be that they didn't get that opportunity to go to North Carolina or Michigan or UConn or wherever it may be, or LSU, whatever. They figured out, hey, guys, we're recruiting guys that want to come here for at least a year or two, and letting them know that we want to help you get to that. We want you to put us on the map so we can put you on the map to get to that top level basketball program that you desire to go to. And we're going to help you do that. That's the strategy that have gone ahead and embraced and said, yeah, we're going to help you transfer to the other school instead of fighting against it, right? They're just saying, hey, for you guys who know you're Division I level basketball players, come on over here to the MAC conference. Let's get to the NCAA tournament, right? This is mainly the basketball program that really has, in the MAC conference, the basketball program that really have done well, especially you Miami of Ohio, right? They're saying, hey, yeah, come on over here, right? You overlooked player that we know can ball in our program, get coached up, put you on the map, and then get that NIL deal that you've been looking for, and that scholarship for that program at Duke or North Carolina or UConn or LSU or Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, wherever it may be. We're going to help those doors of opportunity open up for you. So look, watch, hear what I'm saying. Go look at the MAC conference, basketball conference, and what's happening. In this NIL Wire article, I'm giving NIL Wire a plug, nice plug. Go out there and check out what I'm saying, what the MAC conference is doing, what University of Miami of Ohio is doing. And they're just telling these guys, hey man, come on over here for a year or two and ball out and show them that you can ball. And we're going to help move you on, help you get paid NIL money and all that other opportunity. We know you're leaving us, but hey, we're making the tournament every year. We're making a run, and then some of those kids are going to decide, hey, I'm good right here because we're going to the tournament. We're beating the Michigans and North Carolinas or whatever, and Ohio States or whatever, and the Tennessees and the Florida. We're competing with some of those schools and may even beat some of them. So, hey, I'm good for maybe another year over here to make my NIL bag even bigger, right? Especially if I got, a good amount of eligibility remaining, right? 2 or 3 years of eligibility remaining, right? So So that was a pretty interesting article that I read on NIL Wire, that I saw on what that conference is doing, as well as certain teams in the conference, in the MAC conference, have embraced and are getting kids, getting players, and they're saying, come and let's help. We want to help you ball out, right? And move on to a bigger program. And so that's what we're saying here. You don't lose any eligibility coming here, in NJCP. But we're saying for you guys that you feel like you've been overlooked, right? You had a coach that didn't help you out, or really didn't, sell you, or really didn't give you the information that you should have gotten about going to college camps that you should have gone to. And it's hard to get recruited if you never have gone to a college camp. And it's sad that you had a high school coach that didn't, pass on that type of information to you as a young athlete. And that's why I say you gotta be vigilant, man. You gotta be vigilant. If you know what vigilant means, it means you gotta take things in your own hands, right? You gotta take control of your path, right? Your road. You got to take responsibility for it, right? I know there's some high school coaches, man, that ain't worth their salt, right? But there are a lot of high school coaches that are, right? There's a program called NJCP with about almost 20 teams across the country. And I know every one of those coaches are ready to, bring you in, embrace you, and develop you, and help mold and shape you to be the athlete that you desire to be, to get that top, Division I offer. But you got to play. You got to be, you have to be able to, bring it on the field, right? You just can't talk that talk, man. You got to be able to, you got to have receipts, man. You got to be able to pay those, pay on that balance, right? And so that's the thing that, I just want to come on tonight, just briefly talk about athletic recruiting, right? Would love the game 24/7 for 2026. You kids can follow me at Love the Game 27 on X. Follow me out there on Twitter. Follow me on YouTube. Hit me up in the chat. You can email Coach, right? Love, LOVE, THE 247, the numbers 247 game at gmail.com, right? And let's talk, help give you some direction, give you some good information, some good feedback, some wisdom, all right, on how you need to be making your decisions. If just hit me up, whatever you want to do, hit me up on the email. If you want to talk, I'll email you my contact information. Even if you're a parent listening to this live or the recording, like I said, once again, I appreciate you for joining. I appreciate you for subscribing to my YouTube channel, Love the Game 24/7, right? Let's get those 1,000 followers up for Coach Smith, right? Your favorite coach. And like I said, I'm also, I have my Rise Youth Flag Football League that I'm starting up here in McKinney, Texas, and Little Elm, Texas, right? We're trying to get these girls plugged in for flag football. Some of these girls it's going to be new to a lot of girls, but if you're athletic, and even if you're a track athlete, or whatever other sport you play, look into flag football, because there's scholarship opportunities. You have to look, young people, you have to look for ways. Parents, you have to help your young person see, how they can help pay for their education by their strong academics and their strong athletic ability, right? And sometimes you may not be as good in this sport, but man, you may try this sport over here and excel and take off and get on the map, because you try a little something different. That's why I don't like this specific sports stuff for these young kids at an early age. Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco, Chad. They talked about that. They've talked about it more than once. About how they hate that as well. That because we played multiple sports, man. We may have played 4 or 5 sports growing up. So don't focus on one sport too soon, right? It may be your best sport, but as Shannon was sharing, we always use that other sport to help us in our best sport, right? I played other sports because I wanted it to help me in football, and I got good at that other sport too. I used baseball, right? I used track and field, wrestling, for a lot of the linemen and linebackers, or throwing the shot, putting the discus, right? To help a lineman or a D lineman have loose hips, right? Be flexible, right? Get that bend, right? Because they learned that from wrestling or throwing the shot put or the discus, right? And really trying to hone on those skills and having the mindset to say, man, I really want to use this so I have really good footwork for my kickback and pass blocking as a guard or offensive tackle, right? Or I want to use this for my get off, right? I'm gonna do some track and field, right? For some get off as an edge rusher, right? So I know how to get off faster, right? And get my hands moving quicker, right? And I do some wrestling, all those types of things. Um, and so that's why it's important. I think you do multiple sports as long as you can, right? For as long as you can. I got track and football money my freshman year in college, right? And I ran track from seventh grade all the way through college and did football as well. So and never underestimate small beginnings, guys. Never underestimate. So I just want to come on here and just talk a little bit about that recruiting and share about NIL wire and share about love the game. You see my shirt, right? LTG 247, love the game, right? Got my website, lovethegame247.com, right? You can find out a lot of stuff about Coach Smith out there as well. I got to get my Rise link out there on my website too. But I have my websites. I got to get them linked to lovethegame247.com, but I do have my McKinney website in my North Dallas for Little Elm Rise Youth Flag Football Leagues, right? And so we're getting a lot of people signed up for that. So I definitely want to give a plug about my Rise, but everything is under Love the Game 24/7. NJCP, me as a coach, right? As a contract coach with NJCP, and I believe in what NJCP is all about. And as well as all the other coaches that are involved, we believe in it because we know there's some young players that need their continual guidance, right, on how to navigate their young career in football and opportunities. So because we don't want you guys to miss your opportunity, man, because we know there's opportunity out there, and if you just get some guidance, get some direction, on that, because you don't have that opportunity that you had hoped to have right now. But we know coming through our league, you'll be able to rekindle, right, that hope and that fire, right, knowing that there's an opportunity, man, and everybody's role is different, and it helps you appreciate it more and work just that much harder and develop just that much better, and have the success, even more than what you thought you could have, because of the people that you're going to be putting yourself around and listening to as far as coaches, okay, and even some of your teammates and players. So don't think, NJCP, man, is not worth it. It is, right? And so it's a viable option. It is definitely a viable option, and something that you definitely need to consider if you do not have a solid offer, or if you're getting some academic money, but not totally getting any. You're not getting anything with football. I got some players that have said that, hey, I got a little bit of academic scholarship money, which is great, but I don't have any football money. Blah blah. I was talking to one player. He's a running back receiver type guy, like an all-purpose guy like myself. And one of the teams that he got some academic scholarship money. They asked him to walk on, but I'm like, man, there's almost 25 receivers on the roster already and 8 running backs. And they're not giving you any football money. Come play over here for us and let us help develop you, right? Where it's not going to cost you that much money like it would just having an academic scholarship, some financial aid. You're going to have to probably get loan money going to that school. It's not very expensive, but it's expensive enough to where it's more expensive than us, where he's going to play and not lose any eligibility at that particular school he was considering. But I'm like, no, man, come over here and let us develop you. Let us re-recruit you, right? And get the word out there about who you are, and give us the footage, video footage, game footage for us to show, because you're gonna be playing against some grown men, and not just high school kids. You're gonna be playing, kids who just graduated out of high school. You're gonna be playing against transfer portal kids, some grown men who've been in college, who are gonna help groom you as well, right? They're gonna bring the wood and teach you, hey, this is college football, this ain't high school, and that's what you want, right? You want that kind of heat, right? And it's gonna help you determine whether you still want to play this game or not, whether you got what it takes. And so once again, man, just, reach out to Coach Smith, and I'm more than happy to talk to you guys. But like I said, I wasn't going to be long. I just want to jump on here briefly, right? So this is, Love the Game 24/7 Athletic Recruiting 2026. And be sure you subscribe to Love the Game 24/7 YouTube, and follow me on TikTok, and Love the Game 27 on Twitter, and Coach Smith 27 on IG. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys joining me. And like I said, whether you're watching this, live now, or you're watching the video later, be sure to share it with that young person out there that's needing some direction. Get in contact with Coach Smith, and I'll be more than happy to sit down and hear what options you have and what you're considering, and try to give you some insight on, some potential direction you may want to go. All right. More than happy to do that. All right. But I appreciate you guys, man. Y'all have a good evening, and take care.